Before we begin, if you're a mom or caregiver dreading Maycember, I have something for you. The Mom's Spring Break Bundle. For just $27, you get 26 expert resources, including my Minimum Effective Day mini course. Doors close April 17th. Grab it at positivelyproductive.com/bundle26. Your calendar isn't just a functional place to track what you need to do and when. It tells a story about what you've said yes to. And that tells its own story from there. The point of this episode is to help you ensure that you have said yes to and have left sufficient space for what actually matters to you. You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life, with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and if you've ever looked at your calendar and felt a wave of dread instead of a sense of direction, this episode is for you. A packed schedule can feel productive on the surface, like proof that you're doing the things, but more often than not, that packed calendar is actually working against you. We've talked about decluttering on the podcast quite a bit, and always through a wider lens, through a whole life perspective. Clutter shows up everywhere in our lives, not only in our homes and physical spaces, but also in our minds, our emotions, and the systems we rely on every day. When those systems get cluttered, they stop working for us and start working against us. And one of the most cluttered systems I see is the calendar. Most of us spend a lot of time thinking about what to add to our schedules. Again, that's a very productive feeling. We consider what tasks need a time slot. You can thank the popularity of time blocking for that one, and what appointment needs to be booked, because you need to set that time aside, so that's a good thing. Things that are time-specific need to be scheduled, but we take it too far. We treat our calendars like containers to fill, and even like to-do lists, but the calendar then becomes just as overwhelming as the list it replaced. I encourage you to start thinking more selectively. What if protecting the space in your calendar is actually more important than filling it? That idea, making space for what matters, is at the heart of everything I teach here. And your calendar is one of the most powerful places to practice it. Let's start with how our calendars get cluttered. It might seem obvious, but it doesn't necessarily happen all at once. Calendar clutter can be sneaky. Part of what makes it so sneaky is that filling space feels productive. We're wired to see empty space as a waste. An open afternoon looks like inefficiency. A clear morning feels like a missed opportunity, or even like, what did I forget to do kind of morning. I saw this constantly when I worked with professional organizing clients. An empty shelf or an unused drawer made people uncomfortable. I would often challenge them to have one on purpose just to get used to it, because to them it felt like something was wrong, like they were missing something. We don't tolerate empty space all that well. We feel compelled to fix it like it's a problem, and calendars are no different in this regard. The other piece is capacity. We say yes to too much, want to do too many things, especially if we're a multi-passionate creative, and generally believe we can fit it all in. Oh, I gotta love that optimism, but most of the time it's just not gonna happen. I think part of it is because visually the open slots tell us we can. But a calendar block doesn't show you the energy, focus, planning, or recovery a task actually requires. We make the commitment without accounting for the true cost. And for anyone with ADHD, this is even harder to catch. Time blindness makes it genuinely difficult to feel the weight of what's coming before it arrives, to be able to actually manage that time properly and know how long things will take. So we fill the space. That is our natural inclination. And then productivity culture adds to it. They hand us a reason why we should fill it even more. One example is productivity researcher Kevin Cruz. He made a compelling case for ditching your to-do list and living from your calendar. And listen, I respect him and studied his work significantly when I became a productivity coach. His intention was good. Protect your time, be deliberate. Stop listing and start scheduling. Yes. This sounds good in theory, and in practice it can work. But I've also seen it backfire. People use that idea as permission to cram everything into time slots as though that will get them more organized and help them do the thing. But ultimately, the calendar becomes just as overwhelming, or maybe even more so. Some of the most common patterns I've seen with clients: obligation creep, things that made sense at one point, committees, recurring check-ins, standing calls, that haven't been reevaluated since they were added. Notification as an event, so reminders, alerts, and pop-ups that live on the calendar but aren't actually things to do at a specific time, so they're clutter with a timestamp. Overblocking, that trying to find a time block for everything, tasks, errands, to-dos, and in a way that leaves no breathing room and guarantees that your day is going to fall apart before it's even begun. But mostly, it's a lot of visual clutter that can make you feel overwhelmed, even if you aren't technically. And another is other people's priorities. And this is something that passive receipt of things on your calendar that can be really sticky. Calendar invites that landed without your input or approval, and meetings that could have been an email. I probably could do an entire episode on that, or at least a rant on Threads. Even events that you accepted because declining felt harder than saying yes. Now, none of these things are a sign that you're doing it wrong. Again, these are patterns I've seen with my clients all the time. These are things I've done myself. Even the most well-intentioned systems can quietly work against you. And these are the pitfalls that we want to watch for. And that's exactly why your calendar deserves the same regular tending you'd give to any other space in your life. So how do we spot what shouldn't be there? Just as you'd stand in front of a closet and try to figure out what actually belongs there, what fits, what you still use, what reflects where you are now. You can do the same with your calendar. And just like a closet audit, it starts with being honest about your current reality. Not the life you planned for 6 months ago when you put this on the calendar, not the pace you set before things got hard or things changed. Where you are right now, your energy, your season of life, your demands, your stress level. That kind of capacity isn't fixed. It's ever-changing, and your calendar needs to reflect that. So let's look at what's actually on there. And as you review your schedule, which I suggest doing a week at a time, look for events and ask yourself, does this still serve a purpose I value? Do I need to do this? Is this still happening? Did I actively choose this, or did it land there from somewhere else, from someone else? Is this the right tool for keeping me in the loop and keeping me on track? If this weren't already on my calendar, would I add it today? Is this a critical notification, or is it a distraction pretending to be important? What's missing here? This is where you look for the things that matter to you that have no protected time at all. And the last one can often be the most telling. When your calendar is full of other people's requests and obligations that you think that you need to commit to, and things that you lost track of, your own priorities get squeezed out entirely. And that's what we're trying to avoid here as well, to give you space to breathe, to do the things, and to make sure that your priorities are taken care of. So the audit isn't just about what to remove, it's about seeing what's been crowded out by what doesn't belong. That's a concept for clutter throughout your life. Once you can see the clutter, you have more options than you might think. You don't always have to delete something to declutter it, though that's a solid option in many cases. Sometimes you just need to change how it shows up or where it's located. Consider these options. 1, declining or avoiding. If you're in a job where certain meetings are required, that's a real constraint, but there are bound to be options where you can say yes or no. So whenever possible, decline what you can so it never makes it onto your calendar to become clutter in the first place. The best way to keep the clutter at bay is to not let it through the door. 2, renegotiating. It's okay if you ask if something can be an async update instead of on your calendar. Let the organizer know you have another way to track an event or the information surrounding a task. As long as you show up and do what needs to be done, many people don't care how you track it. 3, putting it somewhere else. Not everything that needs your attention belongs on your calendar as a timed event. You can change the tool you use and place this information in a task in your to-do system where it lives until you do it, and you can still make it time-bound without blocking your schedule. A full day or multi-day event on your calendar so it's visible, but it's hiding above the day and not taking up a time slot so it feels less cluttered. A note or reminder in a system you trust, and many of those will remind you in different ways where you can send an email or something will show up as a banner on your phone or something like that. And then repeat alarms on your smartphone. And this is great for tasks after business hours where you don't need to have it on the calendar, but you will want to remind yourself daily. I actually use quiet alarms like that for taking medication and reminding myself about certain tasks. And 4 is removing it. Sometimes decluttering is deleting. So let go of that recurring meeting that you don't need to attend or the standing reminder you've been dismissing for 3 months or the event you accepted out of obligation. If you can get rid of it, go for it. Some bonus options: muting or modifying notifications. Sometimes the event itself is fine. It's the interruption about it that's the problem. You can keep something on your calendar quietly in a space and turn off or change the default notifications. I recommend checking your default notifications everywhere right away and making them work for you. You can decide what reminders are more useful and less distracting, or sometimes in an instance where you don't really need the reminder because it's a low priority task that you may get to if you can, but it's okay if you don't. Small adjustments like this can meaningfully reduce the mental noise in your day caused by your calendar. So this is a bit more mental than physical or visual, but still helps take the clutter down a bit. And another bonus option is changing the view. Now, this one is underrated. Sometimes the clutter isn't in the calendar itself or even the content that you're putting in there, but how everything blends and how you're looking at it and how it's visually overstimulating and distracting. So switching from a week view to a day view where your scope goes down can be helpful. Or using color coding so you can quickly assess different types of events and then you can focus in on the ones that are important. It's basically a visual filter. That can also help, and it completely changes how you experience your schedule. And that's the whole point with the idea of reducing clutter. Now, color coding, that deserves its own full conversation, so I'll be doing that in a future episode. In the meantime, if you want to go deeper on how to use your calendar as a flexible, functional tool rather than a rigid schedule, check out episode 273, How to Make Time Blocking Fun. It connects really well with what we're talking about today. Once you do the work of decluttering your calendar, you have one more critical step, and that's protecting the space. Protecting the work that you've done. While it's easy for the clutter to creep back in, especially when it comes from other places that you didn't intentionally put it there, there are some things that you can do to help. As you are placing things on your calendar, be sure to build in buffer time. Buffer time is the transition space between things, the decompression between appointments, the wind down at the end of your workday, the breathing room that keeps one thing from bleeding into the next, and therefore keeps you better focused and keeps your energy from moving from one to the next. It can look like a 15-minute gap between meetings, a short walk after a hard conversation, or even a commute you no longer have, but you still technically need. If you used to drive to work and you now work from home, you probably know what I'm talking about. That commute time was actually doing something for you, and it helped you shift gears between work and home. I suggest keeping a version of it, blocking in that time. And even if it's a shorter amount of time than you would have driven, it honors the need for those quiet minutes, doing something else, decompressing after work, even without the actual drive. You want to budget for a full task when you are placing things in your calendar. What I mean by that is when you're adding something to the calendar, account for the whole thing, not just the event itself. A meeting includes prep time before and after. This kind of goes along with buffer time as well, but buffer time is really more about dealing with the effects and the energy drain and prep, whereas budgeting for the full task means if you have to do prep work and if you have to be prepared, this will be that time that you're accounting for. A creative project will need ramp-up time. When you have a meeting, you may need follow-up after. When I have a client meeting, my client meeting isn't just the meeting time with my client. It is the before time where I prep for the meeting so I come prepared and we can make the most of our time. And then there's a follow-up. Whenever I work with a client, they always get action items sent and a summary of our meeting, because sometimes you walk away and you're like, wait, what did we talk about? That's a big part of what I help with. So my quote time for a client is much larger than the actual meeting time. And when you budget for that full task, all the things that you're going to need to do, you naturally create limits on how much you can realistically fit in a day. And that's a good thing. You also want to know your minimum effective day. On a hard day, when energy is low, life intervenes, or things just go sideways, what does a good enough day actually look like for you? Having that answer in advance means you always know what to protect first, and that helps you with these choices. I talk about this in episode 306, Planning a Day That Works for You, and it connects directly to calendar design. You anchor your non-negotiables and you hold the rest loosely. It gives you flexibility, and that's where you place in budgeted time for everything, buffer time, more time than you think you need, that extra space that we seem to be scared of. But it's okay. It's really useful. You also want to set boundaries around what gets added. Protecting your calendar is an ongoing practice, not a one-time event. Before you accept an invite or add a new commitment, ask yourself, can this really fit? If it does, am I replacing something else with it? Am I losing buffer time? Am I losing an opportunity for a personal priority, for rest? That pause to consider these things, even if it's brief, is often enough to make a more intentional choice. Your calendar isn't just a functional place to track what you need to do and when. It tells a story about what you've said yes to, and that tells its own story from there. The point of this episode is to help you ensure that you have said yes to and have left sufficient space for what actually matters to you. The things that'll be quality, that'll be truly productive, that move the needle forward, that help you move toward the life you want to be living. If you love the idea of applying a decluttering lens to more than just your physical space, I have a whole collection of decluttering episodes here on the podcast waiting for you. You can find them at the positivelyproductive.com podcast page, and there's a declutter playlist you click on, and you'll have the entire set. It includes everything from your home to your digital life to even your relationships. This is part of a bigger conversation, and I'd love for you to keep exploring it. A clear calendar, a decluttered calendar, isn't about having less to do or even having less on it. It's about having more room for what counts, having it guide you instead of confuse you. Your calendar can be one of the most honest mirrors you have. Clear it with intention, protect it with care, and it will start to show you and everyone else what really matters. Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. I hope this episode inspired you, and I encourage you to think about one action you can take based on today's topic. Then share it with me so I can cheer you on. Go to positivelyproductive.com to connect with me, read blog posts, and access links from each episode and download resources.